The leadership of the federal, state and local governments say they are willing to rise up to the challenges caused by the rising cost of living in Nigeria. Tonight, our focus is on the critical business sectors that influence the welfare of families and the prosperity of the nation. Babajide Ogunsoro, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data consultant, is here to share more insight. Babajide, great to have you again on the News at 10.
Good evening, Ayatollah.
An interesting one we're going to be talking about, of course, looking at the influence of welfare families. Now, let me start by asking you, some years ago, at least, business owners advocated for governments to help improve the ease of doing business. In recent times, well, it appears the cause haven't really changed. Is there any data that points, to the way we do ease of business in Nigeria?
Again, just as you started, the discussion was improving the ease of business some years ago. Now, the discussion has moved to reducing the difficulty of doing business. But yes, to that question, yes, there is data that points to what the government needs to do and what the government needs to stop doing. In simple terms, Ayo, tonight I come with some good news and some bad news. But I'd like to start with the good news first. I'd like us to take a look at the best performing sectors, what we'll probably classify as the best businesses to operate in Nigeria, especially if you look at it compared to where we started this journey from with this new government in 2015. Now, what's in front of you are the best performing economic sectors in Nigeria. Going by the data from the National Bureau of Statistics and comparing to where those sectors were in 2015, their report shows that the telecommunication and information services sector has been the best performing sector when we talk about that indicator, gross domestic product, GDP, looking at the value creation. In simple terms, real GDP of the telecommunication sector, 5.9 trillion naira in 2015. As at the end of last year, it grew by approximately 4.1 trillion naira. So the GDP, real GDP of the telecommunication sector, now 10.1 trillion naira. The fastest growth, again, I repeat, of 4.1 trillion naira real value. The other sectors that have shown significant positive growth, which is where the good news is, crop production. Why is this important? Crop production today is Nigeria's largest economic sector, 17 trillion naira as at the end of last year. In 2015, that sector was 14.2 trillion naira. So in terms of economic performance, it comes number 2, growing by 2.9 trillion naira in those 7 years, 2015 to 2022. Financial institutions, again, that's one surprise. We've seen the financial institution growth of 866 billion naira. But here's why that is a surprise. Even though the financial institution sector is growing, if we look at the growth of businesses, are the financial institutions contributing to business growth, which we'll get into later? The data shows surprisingly no. So yes, the financial institutions are growing, but they are not necessarily, that growth is not necessarily because they're contributing to the growth of small, medium, or large enterprises. In all, telecommunication sector, crop production, financial institutions, where we belong, broadcasting comes number 4. We've seen growth in the last 10 years, food, beverage, and tobacco. The road transportation sector has grown, trade has grown, other general services have grown, cement, and livestock. So the summary is, when we look at the Nigerian economy from the perspective of value creation, where consumers are spending, where some businesses are investing new assets and importing products to generate more consumption, these are the 10 business/economic sectors that we've seen good growth. Well, some relatively good growth, and that's good news.
Interesting, good news indeed. So what additional steps, Babajide, should the government take, to help improve the survival and performance of the MSMEs, micro, small, and medium scale businesses?
And talking about that, that is where we should talk about the bad news. And if we take a look at the bad news, yes, we've looked at the top 10 best performing sectors in Nigeria, but taking a look at the worst performing sectors is where the government needs to create new policies, create new programs to create a rebirth in these sectors. In summary, what we have in front of us shows that compared to 2015, these sectors are in worse shape. In summary terms, the construction sector, number 1, 2015, as measured by GDP, 2.68 trillion naira. That has declined in 7 years. Right now, that sector, 2.6 trillion naira. General manufacturing, decline. Accommodation and food services, declined. Professional, scientific, and related services, a decline. Textile, apparels, and footwear businesses are struggling, a decline. Even public administration, a decline. Education, declining. Oil refining, declining. Real estate businesses, struggling.
That's quite an interesting one there, real estate.
Struggling. But the biggest challenge and the worst performing sector in this last 7 years since 2015 is what you have in front of you, crude petroleum and natural gas. A decline of more than 2.3 trillion naira. No other sector in the Nigerian economy has witnessed a more than 2 trillion naira decline compared to where we were in 2015. So what the government needs to do is look at these 10 sectors that are in front of us and stop making assumptions on solutions. We need to conduct more surveys. This can't be a government of assumptions. It has to be a government of facts. And so rather than rush into the providing whatever palliatives or loans or grants, what we need to do with these 10 sectors is for each sector look across the value chain, and we need to conduct surveys. The government needs to have more information. Based on what we know today, these sectors are performing poorly, but we do not have sufficient reasons, Ayotunde, about why these sectors are performing poorly.
Interesting.
So what the government has to do is not make assumptions. It can't be a government of assumptions. It has to be a government of facts. We need to find out more information about why are these sectors performing as badly as the numbers show.
So which brings us to the final question. How much confidence do you think businesses have, concerning policies and programs of government, particularly with the President Bola Tinubu administration?
So we don't have data that shows the current level of confidence businesses have, because it's like a question and answer thing. What we normally see is when governments make their policies, businesses react, and then we look at the historical data to find out how much confidence businesses had. So we can look at how much confidence businesses had about the policies of previous years up until now. And then in another 2-3 years, we'll know how much confidence businesses have about these current policies. And if we take a look at one way to measure business confidence is to look at how much businesses are investing in new equipment, investing in new machines, investing in new tools. And if we take a look at that data, gross fixed capital formation, what we'll find is that businesses in Nigeria are not really investing in new equipment. See, for instance, last year, compared to 2021, only a 3% growth. The year before, only a 5% growth. The year before, a decline of 15%. In summary, Ayotunde, based on the policies that had happened before now, the summary is businesses were not highly confident. We now need to find out, and the only way we'll find out about how confident businesses are with these policies will be when the results of this data comes out. Again, don't forget, some of the most dangerous assumptions are the ones we do not even know we are making.
We'll definitely leave it at that, Babajide. Thank you so much for your thoughts on the news at 10.
Pleasure is all mine.